While console gaming in the mid-90s was dominated by Sony and Nintendo, there was a third player in the game who were forced to take a back seat as 3D games started to pour into the living room. Sega had been a strong presence earlier in the decade, with their Genesis system proving to be a strong alternative to the Super Nintendo. And in an age of video game mascots, an alternative game console needed an alternative avatar. Enter Sonic the Hedgehog, a fast, sassy, impatient blue blur, zooming through a succession of speedy side-scrolling games with undeniable charm. Unfortunately for Sega, despite the popularity of the Genesis, a series of fumbling decisions with the development of their next-generation hardware doomed the Sega Saturn early on, and the cancellation of the planned Sonic X-treme was a serious blow to the ailing system. The franchise would need to bide its time while Sega got their shit together, and in 1998, the company stepped back into the ring with the release of the most powerful game console on the market, the Dreamcast. And shortly after the system's launch, Sonic Adventure arrived. Sonic Adventure is a divided product if ever there was one. On one hand, it served up a sumptuous visual feast befitting the beefy machine running it, but on the other hand, the gameplay was unpolished, inconsistent, and at times, very annoying. While much of this could be attributed to a rush to meet the launch window, some of the game's failings emerged from fundamental problems. Like its predecessors, Sonic Adventure rockets you through levels at dizzying speeds, and in full 3D, these stretches of high-velocity action are the game's best moments, allowing you to revel in the simple joy of going really, really fast. When everything is going well, the game is a wonderful zen trance of running and jumping and flying around levels. Unfortunately, everything can stop going well really suddenly. Little bits of level geometry or sudden camera shifts that muck up your joystick inputs can grind your movement to a sudden halt, and with very few ways of preventing it from happening in the future. For as much speed as this game is capable of delivering to the player's hands, it is very deficient in grace. While the game didn't make the transition to 3D gameplay as smoothly as, say, Mario or Zelda, it did have some good ideas to keep things true to form. Sonic has a lock-on dash attack now that homes in on the nearest target. The lock is determined by the computer, and it generally works as it should. Every now and again it'll spaz out, which is, unfortunately, in keeping with most of the gameplay features of this game, but for the most part, the game is at least easy enough that you won't get stuck anywhere for long. It's just unfortunate that most of what little challenge this game presents comes not from the boss battles or stages, but just from the sheer jankiness of the thing. It's not a total chore to play. In fact, the addition of several new characters and intersecting storylines gives this game a lot of meat. Each character brings new abilities to the table, and it's really cool to see how differently each character plays out. Ironically, for a Sonic game, the characters less focused on speed provide a more consistent experience. The intersecting storylines are awful garbage, but not in the worst way. The mishmash of cliches and stunningly bad voice acting are somehow elevated by the bizarre, energetic cartoonishness of the whole thing. At times, the game tries to be funny, but for the most part, you'll be laughing at the story, not with it. But it's never ever dull, so I can't say it's wasted time.
Weird. Now where was I?
Sonic Adventure stumbles at a time when game developers were really starting to get comfortable with 3D. As a 2D side-scroller, Sonic's high-speed, ring-collecting gameplay worked well, but unfortunately, the shift to the third dimension did a lot to hinder the classic formula. And yet, as one of the best-looking games at the time, it still managed to provide a glimpse into gaming's future, despite the baggage it dragged with it from its roots. 3D was here to stay, and its awkward, blocky puberty was coming to an end. The Dreamcast would be the last home console that Sega ever made, but it was the first of the new era, with its proper opposite numbers not arriving until just after the year 2000. It died out just before the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube had truly hit their stride. And yet, despite its tragically short life, the best games on the Dreamcast hold their own against the others. Sega didn't fail as a hardware creator for lack of trying. Their previous blunders with the Saturn had pushed away the market, dooming their swan song platform before it ever hit the shelves. Just a quick look through the Dreamcast's library of games, as well as its capabilities, is evidence of the company's foresight. It may have been a blessing, and it may have been a curse, but they looked into the future and saw the modern age of gaming. They saw a bright and beautiful future that they helped to lay the groundwork for. But ultimately, it was a future without them.